Okay, so last week Philip had the opportunity to go to Cancun, and he was the first one in our office to travel internationally since the requirement has been put in place for us to have COVID tests to return to the US. And so we thought it would be interesting for him to explain kind of his experience of going through that process and give us some tips. So,
And I'm also going to talk about a couple things that weren't necessarily related to that also. At DFW, the check-in process was pretty much the same. No big change there. Got to go to the Animals Club, and it has improved. I traveled a couple months ago, and Animals Club was really pretty stark. But they've gotten some of the food items back and the drink items back, so it's better than it was before. When I boarded the plane going to Cancun, they were trying the facial recognition instead of the scanning the boarding passes. It is not ready for prime time. You could tell the gate agent got frustrated and ended up just saying forget it and started grabbing the boarding passes and scanning them herself because it took too long. I think that's a thing that will come along, that will get better and the technology get better. We're not quite there yet.
because it worked really well when we boarded Royal Caribbean a couple years ago.
Correct. That was a little bit different though, as far as, if you remember, people were spaced out pretty well. As you know, getting on an airplane, everybody's right there trying to get on, and it was a few seconds for it to.
Even in 2021.
Yeah, even in 2021.
Yep.
So anyway, that's coming. We're not quite there yet. I was fortunate to be in first class on American, and it also had improved from when I had flown before. They actually did some food and some drinks and stuff. When I flew previously a couple months ago, you got nothing. You pretty much had it in a bag when you got on board, and you didn't see the flight attendant again.
It's like it was an actual meal that they brought
It
you.
was a snack thing, but again, it's only a 2-hour flight.
Yeah, so it might have been that anyway.
Yeah, I got a sandwich on one way and a cheese plate on the other, so
Great.
it was fine. It was good. So Cancun Airport. For those of you who've been there, you get your bags. You go through immigration, get your bags. You go through custom was nothing. They stopped. You got to fill out the form, but they didn't even take it from me. They asked me a couple of questions, went through, but the gauntlet, as far as after you leave customs and then you go outside to get your transportation, it's worse than normal as far as the timeshare people. I'm guessing that the number of people going down there have reduced, which means the gauntlet of people, they say their information, but they're really trying to sell you a timeshare. They've gotten worse. So be aware of that. They're much more aggressive.
I think it's kind of like in the falls with bees. When they can't find any nectar, they'll attack anything.
Right.
So it's the same thing.
Right. Okay, at the resort itself, and as far as the restaurants go, they did require masks going into the restaurant. Once you sat down, you take it off, just like it is here. One big change was at the buffet restaurant. No more helping yourself. You have people behind the counter that were helping. Heard a couple people grouse a little bit about the line at the Almond Station, but there's always a line at the Almond Station, so that hadn't been affected at all.
Yeah.
But they had people there help you gain your stuff at the buffet line, so it was fine. And again, the mask thing was required. I saw a couple people get turned away at restaurants who didn't have masks, had to go back and get them in the room and bring them back. So when I checked in at the hotel, the thing that's new is they immediately gave me an appointment for my COVID test. So I was coming back on a Sunday, so my COVID test was on a Friday, I guess it was. So my appointment was Friday at 9:10 a.m. So on Friday, I got there at 9 just to make sure I was in the right place. I was at the concierge desk where I had to go. And they took us three groups at a time. So there was myself and two other couples, and we went to this area in the ballroom and had a little waiting area for us. So from the time that I checked in at 9, I was through with the COVID test at 9:24. Now again, your mileage may vary, but mine was really quick. And I had results the next day. The next day I picked up my letter saying that I tested negative. When I was on my trip going around with other advisors and other people, what I had heard was that they have the results pretty quick, within 30 minutes or an hour. And someone was talking about, boy, I hope I test negative. And someone said, if you test positive, you know by now, because if you test positive, they get you immediately. Also, this group I was with, I stayed on AM Resort, which is Secrets, Dreams, Zoetry. Now those guys, the first 30,000 tests that they did, which is included in the package, they had 21 positive tests out of 30,000. Of those 21, 4 of them were a false positive. That when they did an additional test, it came back negative. So there was very, very, very low positivity rate there. And of course, that place I stayed, AM Resorts, they had it where if you do test positive, I know people are concerned about what happens at that point. You can't, you got to stay in Mexico for a while. If you're at someone like AM Resorts, you're staying there at AM Resorts for free. They are waiving the cost for up to 2 weeks, and you'll be there for a few days, and you'll test again. And when you test negative, at that point, you can head back. I got the letter the next day, and it was very smooth. Now, the Cancun airport itself was a zoo. It was a mess because of these new requirements. Before I went, I did a couple things that made it easier on me. I downloaded Verifly, which is an app, and it's working with American Airlines. I think you saw they were doing a couple of other ones too, but I don't know who it is. But
Yeah, Clear is with Delta and I think United. So just whatever your carrier is, just they have a program in place. So find out what it is.
So with Verifly, it wasn't terribly intuitive, but I finally figured it out. Where before I went, I pushed the button showing that I'm coming back to the United States, and it asks you, fill out a profile, that kind of stuff, asks you questions. Anyway, when I got my letter saying that I had tested negative, I got the Verifly app and scanned it, and it said waiting approval. And about 30 minutes later, I got a notification that it had been approved. And so that showed that on the app, it was my picture and some information about me and a green check mark showing that I had gotten through the Verifly, that I'd been passed the Verifly. So when I got to the airport and I went to the American Airlines ticket counter, I'm guessing 150 people in the main line. And again, unfortunately, I was in first class, but that had probably 15 to 20 people in the first class line. So I got in the first class line, and then I looked, and between first class and main, there were 2 or 3 counters, and it said Verifly. And the guy, I told him it was Verifly, so I got him, I said, can I do Verifly? It had 4 people in line for that. So I shot over the Verify lane and got up there. The other thing I did, besides Verifly, is that Mexico wants you to fill out a health questionnaire. And now for some reason, they are looking at this when you leave. I don't know why. So I had downloaded that the day I was leaving, and I had filled it out online, and it gives you a QR code. So there were tons of people who were filling out the paperwork at the airport. I had the QR code on my phone, and I had Verifly. So when I got up to the Verifly lane, they asked to see my Verifly, then they asked me about the Mexico health questionnaire, and I showed them the QR code, and the lady was pretty flustered, and she was like, thank you for doing that, because they've been put in the ringer. So she was so happy that, that both those were done, they had to deal with it. Got the Verifly, went up to where you go through to go through the security screening. And again, just, your mileage may vary, but once they saw the QR code, they didn't even ask for it again. And I saw other people showing them the forms that they filled out. They didn't take them. They just wanted to see if they were filled out. So anyway, may be different when you go through, but it was had to be done, but they didn't really look at it. But again, it was a disaster. People were missing their flights left and right. A lot of tears. The whole thing took me about 30 minutes to get through from security to from ticket counter line through security, about 30 minutes. But there are people who were in line with me who had been there for 2.5 hours because they hadn't done something ahead of time.
So basically, you can either fulfill all the requirements ahead of time automatedly, or you can do it with human beings at the airport, but you're way money ahead if you.
We are, and the time difference is just completely different, getting it done. So if you're doing it and you can do Verifly, do it. Verifly was the big one. That was always the big difference with Verifly. But anyway, Mexico is great. Being at the resort just like normal. Had to throw on a mask every now and then. Besides that, it was fantastic. Great be back down there. Resort was beautiful. I stayed at Dreams Natura, which was great. I also saw Dreams Vista, which was very, very impressive. So I can recommend those two. very comfortably. Easy process for the most part if you do your homework ahead of time.
All right, so just like everything else, traveling is a whole new world, but it's important to know your way through it, and we can help you with it. So we'd love to. Thanks.